Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. I'm flying solo this week. We're going to record episode number 251. Today we're going to talk about where we stand in the batter's box and an interesting story about how this became a topic worthy of the podcast this week. Before we get into that, let's talk about our sponsors. First, the Anderson Bat Company.
Everything Fast Pitch is very proud to have Anderson Bat Company as our presenting sponsor. Anderson Bat Company is using the latest and greatest bat technology to corner the market in the fast pitch world. They have the -9 Rocket Tech, the -10 Carbon, and the -11 Carbon Light. Anderson Bat Company is using this technology to put a high-performing bat in the hands of hitters that really know the difference between a good bat and a great bat. We're also working with Anderson to provide a discount for all of our listeners. Go to the Anderson Bat Company website and order your bats. Use the EFP20 discount, which is for everything fast pitch, and you'll get a 20% discount.
And again, please make sure you take advantage of that EFP20 discount. It's a great way for you to save that additional 20% and also support the podcast at the same time. We also would like for you to become a patron. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We did add a new patron a little bit ago. Alan Fisher came on board. We would love to see many more people who are able to and see value in what we're doing to come on board as patrons. You go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch, and it'll take you through the steps and we'll get you hooked up. And again, we certainly do appreciate the support of the patrons that we've had. Many of you have been with us for a long time and have kept this podcast rolling. We definitely would like to see more people come on board. And again, thank you very much for Alan becoming our newest patron. Had this discussion, and one of the things we've talked about in the past is hitters making adjustments. And one of the things that I hear from coaches all the time is how frustrated they get because their players go from at bat to at bat and they never make any adjustments. And so one of the things that we talked about recently was the idea that the batter's box is 7 feet long and 3 feet wide for a reason. And that one of the things I see more and more now with players is that they get it in their head that they need to stand in one specific spot. So sometimes it's way up in the front of the box. They'll have a coach that will preach that philosophy because they want you to get closer to the pitcher or to make a slower pitcher feel faster. Others will talk about being in the back of the box so that you can see the ball as long as you possibly can. Some people are talking about moving closer to the plate or further away from the plate, depending upon, if the pitcher's pitching a lot inside or a lot outside. And to my way of thinking, all of those are reasonable thoughts and things that all players should be considering. But the thing I want our players to start to understand is that there's no set spot, no absolute that says they have to be in one spot at all times when they get in the box to hit. So good friend of Stan's was talking about, and again, this is a person who has a major league background, so definitely understands the game of fast pitch and the game of baseball, and was talking about watching his granddaughter play and how frustrating it was to see every single kid getting into the front of the batter's box and staying there when some of them, clearly that was not the best positioning for them. So the idea that came from that discussion was helping players understand that every day their position in the box can change a little bit. Now, they might have a spot that they start out and think, hey, this is my comfort zone. This is the place I really want to be. But if they move up in the box or back in the box or closer to the plate or further away from the plate, those things can all be dictated by how they're feeling that specific day. If I'm hitting and I feel like I am really seeing the ball well and I'm facing a slower pitcher, I might move up in the box because that's going to make it a little bit easier. It's going to feel like I shorten the time that I have to wait for the ball. Same thing if I don't feel like I'm seeing the ball really well, no matter what kind of pitcher I'm facing, I might move to the back of the box to give myself the feeling of getting to see it a little bit longer. If I'm facing a pitcher that's really got a great curveball, a right-handed pitcher that's got a great curveball and is throwing a lot of pitches on the very outside corner of the plate, I might move closer to the plate to have a better chance to hit that pitch. But again, it's going to depend on the specific situations. So for the kids that are always doing one thing and always setting up in the exact same spot, from a coach's perspective, I think we need to help them understand that it's okay for them to have some flexibility, some movement, and to make some changes, even from pitch to pitch. One of the great hitters I can remember playing against when I was still coaching at Tennessee Tech, a girl that played at Southeast Missouri State, just wore us out. We struggled with her entire career. And the thing that she did constantly was move around. She would, even sometimes from pitch to pitch. And it made it much more difficult for our pitchers to get comfortable, made it much more difficult for us to strategically figure out what might be the next pitch to throw because she was a little bit unpredictable. But having gotten to know her later on in her career, the reason she was doing it was how she felt. And she said that sometimes she would feel different from pitch to pitch. Now, normally I would say that that's a little bit of an extreme approach, but she was so successful with it that I couldn't argue with it. And so that led me to having a discussion with several of our hitters who were very, very stubborn, very hard-headed. They stood in a specific spot and they never moved no matter what the pitcher did or no matter how they felt from day to day. And now, again, that can be a positive in some regards because it does give you a baseline. It lets you know sort of where you're at and maybe the adjustments that you need to make to build off of that consistent spot in the batter's box. But again, if I'm not feeling quite as quick, if I'm not feeling quite as strong, if I'm feeling a little bit slow, whatever it is that day, there's nothing wrong with me making an adjustment just for that one day or just for that one at bat or just for that one pitcher. And again, they give you that 21 square feet of space in the batter's box so that you have the flexibility to use it however you see fit. It's not just a thing to keep slappers in the batter's box. It's not just a thing to keep hitters in a confined area so that they can't get too close to the pitcher or too close to the catcher. The idea behind it is so that you have some flexibility. And I think from a coach's perspective, we need to do a better job of helping our players see that flexibility as a strength and being comfortable with moving around in the box. And if you're one of those coaches that's preaching all the same things for all the same kids every single day, we always want them in the front of the box. We always want them in the back of the box. I would tell you to rethink that a little bit because I think from day to day and game to game, you're going to be a lot more successful if you also have a little bit more flexibility. That's going to wrap up number 251. Please make sure you support the Anderson Bat Company. Go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch and fill out the forms. Also, make sure you go to the fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs. You also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog posts. There's tons and tons of information available for you on the website. And also, we want to make sure that you reach out to us with ideas, questions, comments, suggestions at everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. Either one of those email addresses will work. So for our producer, Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey saying thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.